So here we are. So therefore I wanted to do this because I believe that I give fairly convincing demonstration. If someone reads it, they sort of might, if they really read the book carefully and think about it, they might feel they were on the brink of either a whole new worldview or like an amazing bubble of delusion. I don't know which. They have to decide for themselves. But my key point is, it is not difficult for the Chinese to change their policy and treat the Tibetans as human beings and treat the Dalai Lama as a friend and do what he needs to be done for the Tibetan people so that he is happy and he then can become their friend. And they can't make him happy by any number of limos or mansions in Beijing or even calling off their propaganda. That will not help. They have to be decent to the Tibetan people. And it is not difficult. And the sinological thing that they say, which I consider racist, that the Chinese have a special concern for their faces. Their face is really, ooh, Chinese can't lose face. As if we can lose face. Which male chauvinist, egotistical, and even a couple of female chauvinists, egotistical, likes to admit when they're wrong? How many people can say, I'm wrong? Easily. Especially when their friend or mate or spouse or child or parent is saying, you were wrong, yeah, yeah. And who likes it? Who's here? Oh yeah, right, I'm wrong, I love it. Who does that? I'm sorry, we all worry about our face. And of course, we do overcome and we say, okay. Oh, yes, yes, okay, I did make a mistake. And then big sigh of relief, and then we'll start from there. We all have trouble with that, and any 10-year-old has trouble from that. And the idea that the Chinese have special trouble with that because they're specially immature, emotionally and intellectually, I find that offensive, personally. I don't know how Chinese people feel, but I think that's offensive. But that's the sinological. Well, your advisor on the National Security Council or in the State Department or at Harvard or anywhere. Oh, they'll lose face. Don't tell them they should do this. No. I can't say anything. That's ridiculous. They tell Dalai Lama that even. They say, oh, don't go to Taiwan. Don't go to Taiwan. Don't accept the invitation of the Buddhists in Taiwan. He's turned down 5 invitations since his first time. And I heard him say that he's going to go next one. And he has an invitation, which I'm delighted. I've been telling him, what do you mean? Go to Taiwan. The Buddhists ask you. Oh no, but when I go to Taiwan, then they see all the Chinese in Taiwan like me. And then they get mad in Beijing. And some advisors tell me, that's the worst. If they get mad, it's all over. What do you mean? They're going to have a tantrum and nuke you in Taiwan or something? Not at all. They need the Taiwanese. They want the Taiwanese. They're fellows with them. If they see the Taiwanese like you, then they'll realize they could like you. And they're intelligent people. They're smart. Look at them. They just defeated the Western industrial civilization in about 30 years. And now they have like all of our surplus money. What? What's stupid about them? What? They're clever. They have ancient civilization. They actually invented gunpowder and didn't use it for war for 200 or 300 years. They can actually restrain themselves from doing some stupid thing. Any American who invents anything, I gotta use it. Even if it poisons everybody. Well, if I don't, someone else will, and at least I'll get paid. I mean, come on. It's too dumb to pretend that they have trouble with their face. When we are, look at it, they're marching to victory in Iraq. Which direction? Could you tell me? Do they have any idea which direction is victory? Is it, they're going to take on the Turks, the Iranians, the Syrians, the Saudis? Where is anybody in Iraq? They're all refugees in Iraq. Well, there's no victory. Oh, the 52 permanent bases and owning the oil, oh, for that they have to exterminate everybody in Iraq. And then it would be filled up with the angry people from other countries. That's ridiculous, actually. The whole thing has been ridiculous from the start. So the Chinese are not that stupid. They're sitting there conquering Africa, South America, and Wall Street, while we are running around the desert looking for victory. And they're chuckling and laughing about our cowboy president, frankly. I mean, they maybe feel it's a little excessive, but they must be chuckling. Because they have the moral high ground in the world. Except a little problem in Tibet, Burma, North Korea, Darfur. But those are little problems compared to our problem, actually. preemptive war is a war crime from Nuremberg, from the United Nations Charter. I don't care who writes it. Darth Cheney writes it up. Still a war crime. Eventually it will emerge as such. But I'm sorry, that's a different topic. But it's why the Dalai Lama matters. Because the Dalai Lama is the one who is there to lead the world leaders in this direction. The direction of peace, in the direction of dialogue and conflict resolution like that. And what this book does, I hope, is takes the case of Tibet and China particularly and extrapolates it to the larger world and shows that it will set China free to set Tibet free, actually. And that they will get everything really that they really want, that they're trying to get in Tibet, in their attempt to colonize it, colonial policy there, which really Mao said in 1950 he was going to colonize. He was going to have 100 million Chinese in Tibet, he said, in 10 years. But he gave it up quickly because he soon realized that, you know, sea-level people cannot live at 3-mile altitude without getting sick. And there's no place to plow and no place to farm. There's no subsistence for Chinese people. Chinese people never drank milk. My New York Times lady today was amazed by that. She did. I was too, actually. I learned it from Fernand Braudel, great new French historian. It explains the Great Wall of China. You know what the Great Wall of China is? It's lactose intolerance writ large. It is. They built that wall against the upland herding people because it's the only major civilization not based on a symbiosis between upland herders and lowland valley farmers who keep pigs and use night soil fertilizer and don't have manure because they don't have herds, and therefore don't drink milk. They don't have milk in their diet. And so therefore they're afraid of the upland herders, who are kind of rough types normally. They're running around chasing their yaks, you know. And they have built a wall. Isn't that interesting? So how are they going to live? If 100 million Chinese could live in the vast 1 million square mile territory of Tibet, if you look at a flat map, it looks like you practically doubled the original Chinese territory if you really take the original Chinese territory within the wall, not including Inner Mongolia, Uiguria, or Xinjiang as they call it, and Manchuria, which are not original Chinese. Chinese territory is probably not much bigger than Tibet, actually, physically. You know, you can see it here in our lovely picture section I have here, thanks to the lovely people at Beyond Words and China and choose to look at that. Look at the size of that. People say, what's the big deal about Tibet? Why do they care even? Look, this is colored, you know, as an exaggerated relief map to show like a big mountain thing, you know. But on a flat map, it just looks like a huge territory. I have a joke. I say, it's Mao Zedong's Louisiana Purchase. The tragedy was 3 miles too high. Instead of waving fields of grain, waving tails of yaks. It was a very funny thing Tibetans laugh about. Early on in the occupation, after the Dalai Lama had left and they really clamped up full occupation level, in the early 60s, some Chinese communist official decided there had to be a coal mine in Tibet because communist laborers had to have a coal mine. So they made some sort of coal mine outside of Lhasa, but there was unfortunately no coal. So in the coal mine, to heat it in winter, they didn't have electricity instead of this at the beginning. They had to, of course, use what the Tibetans used for fuel in the iron things, which is yak dung. So this was the famous thing in Tibet called the yak dung coal mine. And they would bring officials, party officials, to come. I guess they'd import coal from Sichuan or something, and burn a little coal there to hide the yak dung as their normal fuel. The yak dung coal mine. I'm sorry, but it's kind of a joke. So the point is, what do they really want in Tibet? They want sovereignty over to Tibet. The Dalai Lama wants to give Tibet to them. He wants them to have it in a legitimate way, not by invading and annexing. How could you, in the modern system, in the New World Order, quote unquote, from 1947, since the UN was founded, how do you get legitimate sovereignty in a territory? The self-determination of a people, right? Now, of course, the Tibetans could vote not to join China, but and they would definitely vote not to join China, and they vote with their feet going up, of course, the Himalayas, and in their protests, practically harakiri protests, because they know they're going to be beaten up by the Chinese or in prison, who don't tolerate protest. So they're voting against it right now. But if the Chinese colonists were not sitting on them, if the People's Armed Police were not sitting on them, if their own Dharma and Buddhism was available to them, and they had their own local government, which originally Mao said they should have, the original agreement was on giving them, or at least a third of Tibet, giving it its own government, local government, under the central government, sort of like one country, two systems, sort of like what Hong Kong had. Under that situation, with the Dalai Lama campaigning with the Tibetans saying, please do vote to join China now that we're free in our own plateau here. There's anybody who knows the Tibetan people will know for sure there's no risk. They will definitely vote to join China under those conditions.